Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. If you want to help things explode like these stories around here, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by I'm Sick of Your S Hit. Grandpa gave up what time he had left for revenge on my behalf. I grew up dealing with a lot of mental health issues as my mother's a drug addict and my father liked to ignore my existence as I'm the result of a one-night stand while he was married. So needless to say, his wife hated me and their children treated me horribly as well. The only good people I had in my life was my grandma and grandpa on my father's side. I loved them and spent a lot of time at my grandpa's business. I'll explain that a little later. Now at 14, everything went further downhill. I won't go into details, but my mother almost passed away, and I met a man, let's name him Goat. He looked like one. Long story short, Goat was 25 at the beginning and harmed me in every way you could think of, while I was under the pretense that I loved him and it was okay. He pushed me away from my grandparents and isolated me for 2 years until a friend helped me get out of it. During this next year, Goat stalked me, threatened me, and had me absolutely terrified. I was afraid to go to the police as I didn't want to bring harsh light to my grandpa's business and because I was afraid. I was staying at my friend's house for a while during this time as my panic attacks and what I now know as PTSD was horrible and I hated to be alone. During this time, my grandmother passed away, one of the only lights in my life left, so I became worse. I began drinking and going to parties and trying to forget my life. Right before my 18th birthday, Goat made a real-life appearance again. On my way back from a big party, he jumped me, left me black and blue and nearly killed me. I was found and taken to a hospital where they began treating me, and as I was underage, they asked me to call an adult in my life that they could talk to. I tried to call my father, but he didn't pick up. Knowing my mother wasn't going to help, I had to call my grandfather. He was at the hospital in lightning speed, and for the first time in my life, I watched this man that had built his own empire really break down. Even at my grandma's funeral, he didn't cry. I spent 2 months in the hospital with police questioning me and my grandpa by my side every day. During this time, he met my friend who also helped me out of it all at the beginning and became very close to him. My grandfather helped me get on my feet for a whole year, until one day he had a large family gathering and socialized the whole time, taking me with him. That night I will never forget. We went to get ice cream and then he just hugged me for a very long time, holding me tight and reassuring me everything would be okay. The next day, my grandpa exacted his revenge. Now my grandpa was the owner of a well-off law firm that also had private detectives in a smaller office in his building. He apparently tracked down Goat and went about his revenge. My grandpa shot Goat 3 times in the stomach and once in the chest. Goat passed away in the hospital later that day, while my grandpa was taken in and soon put in jail for manslaughter, which he pled guilty to. I never got the chance to visit my grandpa in jail, as he passed away soon after in jail from complications. 1 week after my grandpa's death, I got a call from his solicitor, and he asked me to go in. I was met with a lengthy letter from my grandpa, which was nothing but loving and showed that he'd found out he had terminal lung cancer and wouldn't live much longer. But he couldn't happily leave me alone in this world without Goat being gone too. My grandpa left almost everything to me. At 20, I would inherit the law firm and could do as I pleased with it, and I inherited 95% of his savings, his house he lived in with grandpa, and his other assets. In case anyone's interested, I turned 21 last week. I'm currently working at the law firm. My grandpa's secretary, now the CEO, has taken over the important things in the building and makes most of the decisions. I spent half the money I was given in locked saving funds for all the younger family members to go to college when it's time. I cut off all contact with my father, who tried to steal money from me during the death arrangements of Grandpa. My friend mentioned earlier in the story is now my fiance, and we're getting married next summer. I'm still suffering from PTSD and depression, but it's getting better every day. I'm in therapy for my PTSD treatment. I got a tattoo from my grandpa and my grandma on my back of 2 lions protecting a cub. I also opened up a safe house for anyone going through any kind of harm. No matter the race, gender, or age, I'm trying to help anyone I can in that situation. Besides for what I've put away for later in life, I'm also thinking of opening up the bakery I always wanted and employing the people that need the job and help the most. But I'm unsure at the moment about that. My grandpa and grandma were a godsend, and to this day I miss them greatly. But I know I couldn't have changed the stubborn old man's mind, even if I tried. Well, I would say that was a very serious revenge. I'm kind of curious, do you guys blame the grandpa at all for what they did? I mean, their revenge was really something. I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by Creed Morewolf 666. Bratty kid hurts my cat until she fights back. For a quick background, I babysit in my home sometimes as a side job. I have 2 cats and 1 dog. One of my cats is a super sweet tuxedo cat named Bella, and she also works as my personal therapy animal. She would rather run away than confront someone, so not a lot of people who know her often expect her to be capable of exploding into a heckish rage. One kid had to find out the hard way, and as far as I know, he's been respectful of kids since then. This kid, who we'll call Spoiled Brat, really lives up to his nickname. He was probably one of the worst kids I've had to deal with, and I'm usually pretty relaxed when it comes to babysitting. He was always stealing things, making messes, and throwing tantrums over literally nothing. I'm pretty sure he has some kind of mental disability, but since he was only 6 at the time, I never wanted to voice my concerns. But out of all of the things this boy did whenever he stayed with me, the one thing he knew could push my buttons was hurting my animals. He would pull my cat's tails and ears, kick them, chase them, and I caught him throwing rocks at them more than once. And my poor dog, who had a part-time job visiting kids in hospitals, had to deal with this little terror too. Because of his training, when he got tired of the kid, he just left the house and disappeared up in the woods until he heard the kid's parents arrive and take him away. I felt so bad for Duke, my dog, that I ended up teaching him the time to go phrase, which is our code for "Spoiled Brat is here, so you better go before he sees you." And I would even leave the shed door open so Duke had a place with water and a bed until the kid left. I had spoken to the parents many times about Spoiled Brat's behavior and how it was unacceptable in my house, and if it continued, I would raise my rate, which was already low to begin with, in order to pay for damages and possibly even vet bills. The parents said they would work with this on Spoiled Brat, but every time he came back, there was no obvious progress. One day, I had settled Spoiled Brat in for his nap and was working on an online certification class when I heard him get up to use the bathroom. At first, I thought nothing of it, since that's normally part of his routine. But what happened 5 minutes later scared the daylights out of me. I hear an ungodly howl from the bathroom, and I'm still not sure if it was Bella or Spoiled Brat that made it, but Spoiled Brat comes running to me. His hands, chest, face, and even his back are scratched and bloody. And Bella comes after him, snarling and spitting in a crazed rage. Her entire body is soaked right up to her ears. Her eyes are the size of saucers, and her nose and one of her paws is actually bleeding. I quickly usher Bella into my room, where she takes refuge under my bed. I call my vet and say I have an animal emergency, but I can't take her on the half-mile drive to his office. Luckily, he says he can send his assistant, and I hang up and deal with Spoiled Brat's wounds. Of course, Spoiled Brat is wailing and screaming and in a great deal of pain, and I'm doing my best to stay calm and not jump to conclusions, but it's rather difficult not to after how abusive he's been. I just remind myself to tend to his wounds first before I find out what happened, and do my best to stay composed. I'm going to explain really quick that I do have a camera system in my garage where the bathroom's located. From where the camera is, you can see into the bathroom, but you can't see the toilet, so a child can use the bathroom in privacy. My doors have locks, so whenever I babysit, the door is rigged to stay open to prevent a child from locking him or herself inside and potentially hurting themselves or causing damage. The camera was actually originally intended to catch any burglars that come into my garage, but it came in handy in this situation as well. At first, I didn't think about my hidden camera. I made sure Spoiled Brat was on the couch resting, his wounds dressed, and a glass of milk with painkillers on the table for him. Then I went to the bathroom. The sight that greeted me was even more shocking than Spoiled Brat's wounds and Bella's rage. There was fur all over the bathroom, bloody paw prints on the wall, and blood on the floor too. As I stepped through all this to the sink, I nearly went into a fury myself. The sink, which is about 1.5 feet deep and about 2 feet wide, designed for shops, was almost completely full of steaming hot water. So hot it actually burned my finger when I tested it, and it had cat fur and blood in it as well as a pair of scissors. I was horrified. I'm not sure what Spoiled Brat was trying to do to my cat, but it was then that I remembered my hidden camera and I rushed to get the footage. As I watched, I became so angry I was tempted to walk out and bend Spoiled Brat over my knee myself. In fact, I wished I could slap that kid silly, but I knew this would be better handled in a court situation where this kid can get the help he seriously needed. The footage showed Spoiled Brat coaxing Bella into the bathroom with a handful of food after filling the sink almost to the brim. He lunged and grabbed her by the neck, and at this point she's already struggling and clawing him. He forced her head underwater, and in the footage you could see her tail and legs flailing as she tried to escape. Somehow she got free of him, and though I expected her to run at this point, instead she tore into Spoiled Brat like a wild animal. As he tried to grab her and force her back into the sink, she claws his face, tore at his chest, and then raked her way down his back. All the while, he's trying to get a hold of her tail. I'm stunned when he grabs a pair of hair trimming scissors off the shelf and runs after her with them. But I think the pain set in because he dropped the scissors, panicked for a moment, threw the scissors in the sink, and ran inside, a furious black cat chasing after him. I made careful note that Bella immediately stopped attacking him once she was out of his grasp, and did not touch him after he dropped the scissors and ran inside. The vet's assistant arrived and was as shocked as I was about the situation. She treated Bella gently and gave my cat some mild sedatives while I explained everything that happened. She was angry too, and she said she would happily support me in court with this clear evidence of abuse. Bella had swallowed a lot of water, and one of her claws had actually gotten ripped out in her mad dash through the garage to escape Spoiled Brat. She'd been stressed and jumpy for a very long time, and I prayed this would not affect her job as my therapy animal. The parents were called once everything was somewhat in order, and I didn't even give them a chance to be angry. I told them, "Pick up your child, I'll see you in court." The court case wasn't even a challenge. With my camera footage and the testimony from the vet and the vet assistant, I won more than enough money, I'm not going to say how much, for damages, vet bills, and an extra month's paycheck so I could find a new client to work for. In addition, Spoiled Brat would not be allowed to have pets of any kind until he had gone through multiple different stages of therapy for his behavior, and would be registered as an animal abuser in case future incidents happened when he became an adult. Some of you might ask why I tolerated it for so long, and mostly it was because all the times I tried to tell the parents to curb his behavior, I was nervous about kicking up dust or causing trouble, and I couldn't afford to drop a client at the time. But after this horrible experience, I will never tolerate such behavior again, regardless of how much I'm getting paid to deal with it. As for Bella, she was relatively unaffected by the incident, and still remains her sweet and lovable self. She still enjoys having her seasonal baths and will intrude on my privacy whenever she wants, but I hope Spoiled Brat learned a very big lesson. He saw Bella as nothing but prey, and I don't think he ever expected Bella to turn the tables the way she did. I also hope that Spoiled Brat will get his life straight and learn to be respectful to both animals and people. And next time he feels like he can treat an animal like garbage, I hope he'll remember the terrifying rage a seemingly harmless house cat unleashed on him. His parents also try to write a formal apology to me for allowing their son to behave that way, which was an order given by the judge. Reading it was very amusing because I just knew they hated writing every single word. The letter said, "Dear Miss OP, we apologize for our son's behavior, and we sincerely hope Bella will recover quickly. His behavior was by no means acceptable, nor was our lack of attempt to prevent it. We also apologize for the damages in your home and the stress this has caused you. We also recognize your tolerance of Spoiled Brat and are sorry you didn't speak out sooner so such an incident could be avoided. We hope both you and your cat will recover and never have to deal with a situation like this again. Our formal apologies and best wishes, entitled parents." You gotta love that even after knowing what their kids did, watching the video of what their kid did, and having a court-ordered mandate to write this apology letter, they still managed to slip in a whole sentence of how it's OP's fault. Sorry you didn't speak out sooner so such an incident could be avoided. OP said that they've been trying to speak out about it. Maybe not so blatantly, but they very clearly said that they discussed the kid's behavior. I don't think these parents learned anything, and I'm concerned this brat's just gonna grow up to hate animals even more. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of both of these stories, which one was your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.